Oh, jeez, you're telling me now. On Me is how I've gone for it. It's just,
On Me.
Yeah, well, not quite in that respect.
No. I didn't mean
steady
like
up
that,
now.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV, and racing returns to Cheltenham this Friday and this Saturday, and this video is a preview for the 2-day showcase meeting at Cheltenham. Andrew, tomorrow you're making the flight over. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
No, certainly wouldn't. When you see John McConnell having entries in October time, you book those flights, you get over as quickly as possible. And look, we've got the full entries for Friday at the moment of recording. We know roughly who's going to run Saturday as well, and some really good cards actually, and some really competitive racing. Not easy to find winners, but fingers crossed we'll do a decent job.
If you do enjoy this video, please hit that like button. If we could hit 500 likes on this video, that would be much appreciated. Get your comments down below. We want to hear what your nap of the 2 days is, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But we're going to quickly fire through these because plenty of races to get through, but we'll try and get through as many as possible, and then at the end of the video we'll highlight our best bets for maybe races that we haven't covered. The first race that I did want to talk about is on the Friday, the 2-mile Novices Chase. It's the second race on the card, and this looks pretty competitive. Aintree Meadow, Jetoile, Auchan Risk, horses that you have liked in the past.
Yeah, certainly. It looks a really good race. Aintree Meadow's been very good this summer. Ran a very big race in the Galway Plate. Was beaten last time out by Adamantly Chosen. That form's been franked by that winner again at Punchestown. Just have a slight reservation about him dropping back to 2 miles this time round, though. I'm not sure whether that will suit him down to the ground. That being said, he'll like the ground at Cheltenham. But for me, a horse that I've been in love with for quite a while now, Auchan Risk. I thought he was really good on his chasing debut at Uttoxeter. He jumped very well in the main. He put away Jetoile that day, and I think the stiffer 2 miles at Cheltenham will suit this horse. I think he'll come on a lot for that. I think he might be able to beat Jetoile a little bit easier this time round. I think he's 3-1 at the moment at time of recording. I thought that was a fair enough price. If I'm being perfectly honest, I thought he might be 7-4, 2-1.
Well, the highest rated horse in the race is Sole Pretender for Norman Lee. He's the Irish angle. What do you think of him?
Yeah, look, he's a decent horse, but I think he's found his limit. He was third behind Enniskerry last time out at Roscommon in a Grade 3. Midnight Run was in between the two of them. Midnight Run's been a bit of a disappointment. He'll go out in front. He'll be the pace angle in this race, and they'll have to jump well in behind to go and get him. But I think he's probably suited better by flatter tracks, and also I'd be disappointed if 1 or 2 weren't too good for him.
Well, I was looking at the cards on both the Friday and Saturday, and it's depressing enough when you go over for the festival in March and the Irish have 20-odd winners. But I was genuinely looking through these cards going, they're going to dominate us, even in October. Like, it's as low as we can get. It wouldn't surprise me if they genuinely win the October Presbury Cup. It's going to be really difficult, but we'll move on. By the way, I don't have a bet in that race. Really don't fancy anything. I think that the £4 or £5 swing between Jetoile and Auchan Risk makes that very interesting in the rematch. And I think Aintree Meadow, like you said, is very good, very consistent, but then step down to 2 miles. It's a bit tricky. Moving on then to the 2.5 mile Ballymore Novices Hurdle. God, I got shivers then. I'm hoping to say that in a few months' time. But moving on to the 2.5 miles Ballymore Novices Hurdle, it's a Class 2, not a graded race in the slight, but a good field actually. She is electric for Norman Lee in there. Rachel Blackmore comes over for the ride. Music Drive for Gordon Elliott and Davy Russell. Not Now Linda, who won at Warwick the other day for Dan and Harry Skelton. Plenty of others in there. It's the one that really sticks out because, see, I think I've got you sussed now, and I think when you're strong on one, I almost know before it happens. I'm going to make a prediction. Music Drive, Gordon Elliott, 3-1.
Yeah, look, it looks a very, very good shade. You've listened to me too many times, and you know exactly where I come from. Horses that have form with the likes of Xander Clegane, Gallant John Joe, Bardenstown Lad. Like, they're just all absolute music to my ears. But this horse, I think, is a pretty good horse. He was good on his hurdling debut at Galway. I was impressed with the way he jumped more than anything. It wasn't a great race by any stretch. I would just be a little bit tentative about Norman Lee's mare. She's really turned the corner the last few times, and I suppose a mare in form is dangerous, but she's a bit of a headbanger. She's a hard puller, and she's never been outside of Ireland before, so this could be all a little bit too much for Rachel Blackmore's going to have her wits about her to restrain this mare, and whether they'll either go from the front like they have done the last twice, or maybe hold her up off the pace. As for Music Drive, he's been there. He ran a respectable race in the Champion Bumper when he was 8th. He then was 5th in the Grade 1 at Punchestown as well. He's got a decent level of bumper form, good hurdling debut. I think he might be Gordon Elliott's first winner of the Cheltenham season, and fingers crossed we're there to watch it.
I completely agree. He's one of those that's a proper horse, if you know what I mean. I don't want to ever play down other horses in the race, but he finished 8th in a Champion Bumper, ran in a Champion Bumper, has beaten the likes of Sandor Clegane. I think he finished 2nd to Redemption Day early on in the season last year. Like, it's really proper form. Obviously won over 2.5 miles or 2 miles and 3 furlongs on his hurdling debut. So I think he comes here for Davy and Gordon, and I think that I think it actually shows the depth that Gordon's got back at home, because I would say that Music Drive won't be maybe top 2 or 3 2.5 mile novice hurdlers for him, but Music Drive, I expect him to get the better of Not Now Linda and She Is Electric. He'd be one of my stronger fancies of the 2 days. Now, moving on, there's plenty of handicaps on the card. We'll touch on a few of those later, but we will touch on the last race on the Friday, and that is the 2 mile maiden hurdle. Might sound ridiculous to skip to the maiden hurdle, but this looks really hot. Plenty of exciting young horses in there. I want you to tell me how you pronounce the Gordon Elliott horse.
Oh, jeez, you're telling me now. On Me is how I've gone for it. It's just,
On Me.
Yeah, well, not quite in that respect.
No. I didn't know that, but in the comments to some previous videos, I've been getting absolute pelters for pronunciation of horse names. So I just wanted to get because it looks like an Irish spelling, no?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, I would take it that the H in the middle there is silent. It usually is. And then there's the follows, which sometimes are in there. There's elongate words, stuff like that. But I'll go for it's definitely on. AN is on, and well, I'd go for Me, even though it does sound a little bit suggestive that way.
Well, if anyone can correct us, that would be much appreciated. But it's a hot race, like we say. Flicking through it, On Me looked pretty good. I thought Dare Mark for Sam Thomas won the last day pretty well. Petrosian has moved from Paul Nicholls to Nicky Henderson. He looked pretty smart before. Hollenbach finished 2nd to Lookaway in the Aintree Bumper. And then Twin Jets was one of the highest rated bumper horses last year of Milton Harris. Absolutely hacked up at Hereford, and backed that up with a good win in a bumper next time out. I think he's going to take some stopping if he jumps well. I know it's really competitive, and I'd say Hollenbach will definitely be second favourite. I think Twin Jets and Hollenbach will be right to the top of the market, but I just think Twin Jets might be one bit better than him.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair point. You've talked about him a few times before this year, and it wouldn't be a race. It would be similar enough probably to how you view the first race we covered there, the Novice Chase. It wouldn't have a massively strong view in it because it's such an informative race more than anything. If I was to be pressed for a selection, it probably would be Twin Jets, but he more than likely is going to be favourite. That being said, because it's such an open race, is he likely to be maybe a 2-1 favourite potentially? Like, I think he's going to be a well backable price, and Mitchell Bastian will probably hold him up off that pace and hopefully come home straight and far the way he has done before with the likes of Mullenbeg last year. He rides the course quite well. So probably Twin Jets for me, but wouldn't be a strong call.
Moving on to Saturday, and the first race is the 3 mile novices hurdle at Cheltenham. And you've got your good mate Wrexham in there. Now explain this to me. You're going to have to explain it to me. Richard Bandy runs St. Palais, rated 148, £18 superior to Wrexham's rating. Wrexham has to give St. Palais a further £8. How does he bridge that gap?
Well, it's going to be tricky. You look at the race, and it's probably a stronger race than you maybe thought it might have been. You look at the last 2 editions of this 3 mile novice hurdle. The one certainly that Streets of Doyen won was a useless race, and even last year Bardenstown Lads race, I think he had to beat Dragon Bones, who was no more than a 130 horse. So it's going to be tricky. That being said, St. Palais, he's got a very good chance, obviously. The weights are in his favour. His chase rating is fantastic. That being said, when he was over hurdles last, he wasn't the most impressive horse in the world. He has improved since then. But I think Wrexham's a horse on a steep upward curve. Is he guaranteed to beat him? No, he's not. I can't tell everyone that he's guaranteed to beat him. That being said, you look at that Killarney form, and I tell you, I just look at Racing TV week on week on week, and the form gets boosted and boosted and boosted. I think it's one of the hottest pieces of form going around in the summer this year. He beat Toss Again, who hacked up next time round. He beat a Spursy by 3 furlongs worth, who should have won a handicap hurdle last time out at Punchestown. Was only beaten a couple of lengths in the end. I think it's good form. Look, it's going to be a tough ask. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm somewhat hoping that by the time this video's out, and a lot of people are seeing it, Richard Bandy's got cold feet, he hasn't entered them, and the Rexmeister can come home safe as houses. But that being said, on the flip side of that, we'll get a real gauge for how good he is against St. Palais, because I know me and you talked about it a little bit before we came on here. If the Rexmeister goes and beats St. Palais, giving him £8, this horse is a 10, 12 to 1 shot for the Albert Bartlett, and we're all sitting here on 33s or 66s.
And it's a good point, and it is a good point. And I'll completely admit, if he can beat St. Palais and they run St. Palais and he runs well, but can't get the better of Wrexham, Wrexham is a real proper shout. And I don't want to say that he's not before, but he suddenly becomes really real for the Bartlett. I think it's a massive uphill task. The one thing I would say is the last time that St. Palais ran on good ground, it was behind Always Signor, albeit, but he didn't run very well. And I wouldn't say they'd be in a rush to run him on good ground again. So if it's on the softer side of good, I think he could run, but it wouldn't be an absolute certainty to run. And bear in mind, we haven't got the declarations for these races on the Saturday, so it's purely guesswork to see if they will. Moving on then to the 2 mile Holdings Hurdle. And this is really competitive. It's pretty much a rerun of the Triumph Hurdle without Fildor and without Vauban. You've got Pied Piper in there. You've got Night Salute. You've got Porticello. You've got Dr. Parnassus. We're not 100% sure that some of them will run. I think Porticello might be unlikely. I think they might keep him in and see if the rain comes, which it's semi-scheduled to do so. Dr. Parnassus will run. Night Salute will run. Pied Piper looks like he will run. Pied Piper 11 to 10. If you're actually looking at the Triumph Hurdle rather than the Aintree run, Pied Piper should have the better of these pretty comfortably, no?
Yeah, he should do. My worry with... Not my worry, but I would say if you're looking at the Triumph Hurdle, to be fair, the ground got very... there was a deluge on the Wednesday, and by Friday afternoon, he was a little bit tacky, he was a little bit holding, and I just don't think that would have suited Night Salute one bit. He's a proper good ground horse. He moves like that, certainly, and all his form is on good ground. I just wouldn't have it in my head that it's a complete penalty kick for Pied Piper against Night Salute. I think that Aintree form it's a hard one to really get. I probably won't back anything in the race, but if I was to really lean between the two, it might be Night Salute, actually.
The final race we'll cover on the Saturday then is the 3 mile Novices Chase, and this looks ultra competitive. Not 100% sure who's going to run, but it looks like a lot of horses in and amongst a similar ability.
Yeah, certainly. It wasn't a race I could really get much of a handle on, to be honest. Champagne Super Over has been maybe a shade disappointing for his connections, given how well he started off his career in bumpers. He's got it together the last couple of times, and maybe you might give him a chance that he might put a third win on the trot altogether, but he wouldn't be the one you'd maybe have the most faith in. I know Malar Mission is in the entries there. I'd be a little bit surprised if John McConnell lets him take his Chase debut at Cheltenham. Even if he did, it would be maybe a sign of confidence, and he ran a decent race in the Albert Bartlett. He was a Grade 2 winner over hurdles, albeit probably a poor enough Grade 2, but he'll be an interesting horse, and maybe see how he takes to fencing. Obviously, it didn't really happen for Bardenstown Lad at Listowel. Let's hope it might be a bit better for him.
Do you think that Henry will send over Life in the Park?
Yeah, I saw him in the entries. I couldn't see it myself, but that being said, he's sending over Champagne Gold for the 2.5 mile Novices Handicap on the first day, on the Friday, who was another horse I didn't think was actually going to run. So the fact that he's bringing him over, they're also in the same colours, the Maloneys, they're good supporters of the game, and I suppose if you have a horse that's good enough to run at Cheltenham any time of the year, you probably don't turn it down. He'd have to have a chance, Life in the Park. He was very good at Listowel, jumped much better, and he's going to be a much better chaser than he is a hurdler, and this is the type of race he might be able to take out, because I don't think there's any top-notchers in there. So
before we move on to the best bets, and we are going to also touch on the Old Roan Chase at Aintree, I did want to flick through handicaps. Now don't say your best bets. We'll leave that right for the end. But are there any other horses? For instance, I quite like Spanish Present in the 2.5 mile handicap hurdle on the Friday. I think he'll take a lot of beating at a 3-1's a good price. Like, he finished 9th in the Champion Bumper. He's won a maiden hurdle at Uttoxeter or Worcester, and he's now rated 116. I think that is quite leading. I think he'd be well handicapped. I also quite like Time White. I'm willing to give him a chance in the 2 mile handicap chase. Off a mark of 142, I think he is a bit better than that. I don't think he's massively better than that, but I think he's a bit better. And once he puts it all together, he will be winning one of these races. So I think Time White at 8-1 is of interest. Nothing for the Temps qualifier. Anything in there for you that's outside of your best bet?
Yeah, well, there's two in the one race, and they're not in my best bets. They might be, one of them might be in your best bets, just because I can't land between the two of them. And it's in the Amateur Riders race on the Friday, and it's the two Christian Williams horses. I think both of them have a great chance. Powerful positions, 9-1. Johnny Max is 16-1. The only reason I say that is we were in this situation last year where Christian threw a little bit of a curveball into Future is Bright. Not the Future is Bright. Strictly a Dancer won this race last year where he looked, in theory, to be second string. Pa King's over to ride Johnny Max, which is a very interesting one. So the two of them to certainly keep on side. I've backed both. And I think the 3 mile 1 handicap chase on the Saturday is between two horses. Definite Plan, the winner of the race last year. I think there's a great chance coming back here off only a few pounds higher. And I'm not sure whether he will run, but a horse that I've been fascinated by this summer is Canando Quetu for Sam and Jonathan England. After he won last time out at Uttoxeter, Jonathan England said they'll roll the dice until the ground starts deteriorating. It hasn't yet, so it'll be interesting to see if he gets declared. I made that race between those two.
Anything for the Old Roan Chase? Yeah,
the Old Roan looked a tough race. I think it depends on whether Hitman's going to run or not. Paul Nicholls seems to be 50-50, whether it's him or Il Radoto that goes for the race. If Hitman wasn't there, I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but maybe Do Your Job was the one. Him beating Manila Drama probably looks the best form other than Hitman in there.
Right, now let's get on to best bets. Can you take us through yours?
Yeah, well, I've got 4 throughout the weekend. 3 at Cheltenham, 1 away from Cheltenham. First of all, we'll get the elephant out of the room. Rex Meister, 1:30 on Saturday. I'm in too deep. I've got to just stay there and keep on grinding away and hope that Wrexham does it for me. The other ones, though, on the Friday, a race we didn't touch on, the Novices Handicap Chase. The 3:20 race, I really like Tully Begg in this race. I was down at Wexford when he won last time out, when he beat Up in the Ante and Rambert Jack, and I thought that was a really good jumping display. Davy Russell over the ride, I think everything suits him. I think he's just a better horse than Hang In There, and I'd take on Pull Again Green on Chasing Debut around Cheltenham. The Pertemps race on Saturday, you're going to think I'm mad having a best bet in the Pertemps. It's Ask Dylan at 25-1. I think he's just one of these Fergal O'Brien early season horses. He's tried fences a few times. It hasn't worked out. He's now dropped to a very, very lenient mark. And he's the type of horse, like, he's never going to win a Pertemps in March. So he might actually want to win this race. There'll be horses in there that won't want to win this race. Charles Burns has one in there. And you're there going, does he actually want to get it done? I think Ask Dylan's on a really good mark. And Jack Hogan takes a further £7 off. And 1 for the Munster National, just so we're flying the Irish flag, over in Limerick in the 3:35 on Sunday. Lieutenant Command for Noel Meade at 20-1. Last 3 seasons, he's won first time out. He doesn't do much apart from that, but he showed some glimpses in big handicaps last year. Won his beginner's first time out. I think the time is to catch him is fresh. He's off a winnable mark. I think Owen Walsh will ride and claim 5 off him. At 20-1, he's my best bet of the week.
Very strong. You're going to think I'm crazy. I've got 6.
Oh, no.
2 of them are in the same race. I couldn't split them, but I think one of them will win. Let me talk you through it. So on the Friday, I think opening up, I think Castel Gandolfo will win the first for Fergal O'Brien at 9-1. Liam Harrison on board, winning jockey of the race last year. Castel Gandolfo finished second in a 2 mile handicap hurdle at the November meeting last year. I think a repeat of that run wins this. I think this is much weaker. Now, what I want you to do, if you've got a racing post or racing TV subscription, is go back to Castel Gandolfo's run at Market Raisin during the summer. He finished second to Pisgah Pike, the Jamie Snowden horse. Anyway, he gets cut up on the inside, loses plenty of ground. Paddy then has to switch him out, loses so much ground, so much time, and he stays on like a train. But I really like Castel Gandolfo at 9-1. I think he is well handicapped, and I do think he's got one of these big pots in him. Moving then on to the 2.5 mile Ballymore Novices Hurdle, Music Drive in there for 3-1. Gordon Elliott, I think he'll take a lot of stopping. Later on in the card in the Amateur Riders, I'm going to actually pin my hopes down to Powerful Position. I think that Christian will have one go very close, that's for certain. He's 9-1. I couldn't believe the fact that he was 9-1. If you look back at Strictly a Dancer's run at Chepstow last year, he didn't run any sort of race whatsoever.
And we backed him, Josh, and we were awfully disappointed.
We were awfully disappointed. Then went to Cheltenham and won. I think the Powerful Position had a pipe opener at Chepstow, and this is his main target. I spoke to Christian Williams at the McCoy Awards last week, and I think that this has been the plan for quite a while. 9-1, he'd be pretty confident for me each way, just to be safe. Then looking over on the Saturday in the 3 mile handicap chase, I like 2. And you're going to have to bear with me here. I was looking through the race, and the one that really stuck out to me was Evers Oscar, actually, who finished second to Tim Vorm to Corach Rambler in December at Cheltenham. Now, 6 lengths behind Evers Oscar was Courceren. That day, Courceren had to give Evers Oscar £10. Now, Evers Oscar has to give Courceren 3. And there's only less than a year in between these two runs, well, 10 months to be exact. I think that Courceren with a £13 switch will take an awful lot of beating at 12-1. Perfect ground for him. I think he'll go very close at 12-1. And then the one in there that I've just seen that's been booked for Jack Kennedy to ride for Gordon Elliott is Motown Maggie at 18-1. I didn't expect her to run, but she was entered in the 2.5 mile handicap chase. If she'd gone there, I'd have really fancied her. But now she's gone to this race. She almost reminds me a bit of like a Mount Ida stepping up in trip for the first time to 3 mile 1 in a Kim Muir, like that kind of mould. I think she could be really slipping under the radar at 18-1. She'd be one I'd be really keen on if she does run. And the final best bet comes in the bumper at Aintree on Sunday. Little nugget for you, Clara Rose of Dan Skelton. I think they think the world of her, and she'll take an awful lot of stopping if she runs. So Clara Rose in the bumper at Aintree, hopefully to finish the weekend on a high. If you do enjoy this video, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Plenty of exciting content coming your way, and over on LTR Plus, including a behind the scenes vlog of the next 3 or 4 days, which could get messy. Really looking forward to it. We'll see you soon.